Night shift. Hollowgate Asylum. The cameras die first. A corridor exhales. Red emergency bulbs buzz like trapped hornets. At the far end, a steel door shivers and settles, a single viewing slit glowing with moonwash from a high window. You hear the rattle before you see him. Patient 9, the one they write around. He hums an old lullaby, off-key, like a music box swallowing nails. Footsteps approach, nurse shoes, soft and certain, a ring of keys, steady in a steady hand. Then, scratch. Not outside the cell, inside the walls. A long curl of claw along tile, like a violin bowed with bone. Patient 9 laughs without sound. The slit fills with one pale, unblinking eye. Luna sister, you're late. At whispering narratives, we don't chase the howl. We listen to what answers. If you make it through Hollowgate tonight, mark the moment and join the pack before the next full moon. Stories like this leave scratches. A soft chime warps into a low synth drone. Distant metal slams. A heartbeat under the mix. Too slow to be human. Too smart to be safe. Night shift, Hollowgate Asylum, and the cameras die like moths against a porch light that's finally had enough. Static becomes the building's breath, soft, patient, unembarrassed by the way it rasps. Down in the lower wing, a steel door exhales. A tremor in its hinges as if it dreamed of running and woke with sore legs. The moon smears itself on the barred windows, a pale thumbprint you can't polish away. Somewhere a pump coughs, somewhere a pipe ticks, somewhere a hymn nobody remembers, whittles itself down to a single note and refuses to quit. Clara Voss listens to all of it, the way a pianist listens to a room before touching the keys. She counts. The beat between fluorescent flickers because rhythm is a leash, and tonight she needs 2 or 3. Her shoes tap their patient metronome along tile chewed by decades of gurneys. Antiseptic eats the air. Beneath it, the older smells keep there. Seats, iron, damp stone, paper that's tasted too many hands. She won't breathe with her mouth open. She won't let the building decide how deep she fills her lungs. She won't let the moon pick the tempo. Not yet. Room 14 waits at the corridor's far end, a dark pupil rimmed in red. The placard says P9, the ink scuffed by cleaners who never learned to be gentle with letters. 3 locks wear the door like medals. Behind them, the file insists on diagnoses. Paranoid ideation, delusional system, mythopoeic verbalization, words that sound like fences until you notice the grass growing through. The tabloids were less shy. Pashopay Butcher. The orderlies say it when they need to feel brave. The psychiatrists say it when they need the budget line held. The building doesn't say it at all. It listens the way old houses listen to storms. Clara checks her reflection in the observation glass. The face comes back ordinary and tired in the red wash, hair braided tight so nothing loose can become a fuse, skin paper pale from this winter and the last and the one before it, mouth thin from telling other people they're safe. The silver crescent at her throat keeps its shine in bad light. It warms to her touch, then cools at once as if remembering you don't pet a live wire. She rubs the dent on its back with her thumb, the bite mark she left at 9 years old when breath wouldn't come and the night pressed down to see if she'd break. Her grandmother had said, 4 in, hold 2, 4 out, child. Name your breaths or they'll name you. She slides the inspection hatch, a rectangle of dark stares back, then an eye arrives, pale, intent, a coin turned up by a shovel that didn't expect to find anything worth keeping. Vitals, she says, because the ritual is the door you walk through to keep from falling off the world. An arm extends. The skin is cool but unshaking, the hair light against it like dust that changed its mind, nails clean. The hum under his breath could be a lullaby if you shaved the razors off. She loops the cuff and pumps the bulb, watches the needle nod. Deep breath, she says. You blink when you change. He answers softly. All of you do. Her fingers keep working because hands that refuse to flinch are a kind of lantern. In, out. You smell of silver, Nurse Voss. His tone is not mockery, not entirely. Does it burn yet? Your blood pressure's fine, she says. Hydrate, sleep. He smiles and turns his face so the red bulb fills one cheek like a fever. His teeth are ordinary teeth used poorly. Pashopay, he murmurs, tasting the syllables as if they were nothing but salt and history. Moon faith. Did you know that? No, of course you didn't. The state sanded the language off before it sealed the doors. The locks confirmed themselves one by one under her hand. Snug, obedient, insufficient. The corridor draws her back the way gravity coaxes the spine into the shape of an hour. She doesn't hurry. Haste is an admission. At the nurse's station, she pours coffee that resents being awake and sits where the camera bank can see her not looking at it. The radio on the shelf above the logbook gives a death rattle, a resurrection rattle, and then slides sideways into jazz from a decade that died before anyone she loves was born. A trumpet mouths its vowels through water. The dial won't turn. The song doesn't end. On the monitors, Room 7's bed, neatly made by a hand that never learned to tuck sheets the same way twice. Room 9's screen, snowing. Room 14's slit of light. The eye again, the ghost of a mouth deciding between prayer and teeth. The speaker clicks even though she didn't invite it. A voice like a hand at the back of the neck says, "Tell me, Clara Voss, how do you keep the beast in its pen when you are the pen?" She kills the speaker and the radio both. The trumpet keeps playing anyway, smaller, as if it found the ductwork and learned to love its echo. The clock above the meds cabinet discovers 12:07. The generator upstairs sneezes, apologizes, and dies. Red emergency bulbs wake up one after another with the offended dignity of saints dragged out of bed. Hollowgate exhales. Somewhere a door changes its mind. Routine can still be armor if you don't ask it to be a shield. She takes the clipboard and the keys and the bluff she's practiced since childhood, and she goes to where the blinking is. Room 7's call light pulses frantic as a bad vein. Ms. Traynor lies rigid beneath a blanket she won't admit to feeling. Her thumb bruises the button. "He told me to press it until you came," she whispers, and her voice is two voices, one 84 and one 8, neither sure which one belongs to this night, said to nights when the moon breathes. "Who told you, Ms. Traynor? Names are doors." She says it like she's quoting the wallpaper. The vent above the bed exhales. Dust makes a pale weather out of the air, scratched into the metal by something patient. 4 lines, 3, 4 again. It's not art. It's marching. Orders, 4 in, hold 2, 4 out. The charm at Clara's throat cools so fast her skin recognizes winter. She straightens, but the room leans. The hall outside feels longer than it ever had the right to be. At the far end, Room 14 wears a mouth it didn't a minute ago. A tongue of dark pushes through the gap. "Luna, sister," the duct murmurs, the trumpet trying to hide under the syllables. "Shall we rehearse?" Her first step back into the corridor surprises her by landing. The second finds the floor by habit. The third belongs to someone with better sense. She keeps going because stopping would be testimony, and she refuses to testify for the dark. The moon lays its coin on each patch of tile in turn. The red lamps seethe, her crescent hums. She reaches the door and lays her hand flat against what's left of its temper. The hinges give her a courtesy creak. The cell is orderly as an apology, chains coiled like hoses, cinder blocks scored with a new calendar in parallel claws. You can call markings graffiti if you want to keep the lights on. The intercom blinks. Without light, the jazz turns itself into a hallway of snow. Somewhere below, something metallic claws, something older than metal, and finds its grip. The emergency lights shudder and settle. 1 floor down, another door unlocks itself the way. A jaw unhinges for a yawn it didn't plan. The building practices the breathing pattern it taught the vent. She runs, though from the outside it looks like a walk the night decided to accelerate. The elevator opens without shame. Inside, a stripe of water leads to the back wall, slips into the seam where steel ends and the rest of the building begins. Her reflection in the brushed metal blurs. A second face arrives under the first, eyes gold as coins you're not supposed to spend. She faces front, the doors close, and she feels the descent in the soft parts of her teeth. The basement isn't cold so much as preserved. The concrete sweats, the pipes mutter advice no one alive remembers. The hydrotherapy room waits with its chair bolted to the floor, its straps unbuckled, its drain a dark mouth that doesn't want to eat anymore but will. Patient 9 stands in the center like an usher. Bare feet, wet hair, smile that thinks it can afford itself. "You brought the moon," he says, "and it isn't a compliment, it's recognition. What did you do?" She asks, not because she thinks the answer will save time, but because questions are wedges you drive into closed things. "Prayed," he says. "To what?" He looks at the ceiling. The first crack of lightning turns the room white long enough to erase faces. "To who?" he corrects gently. "Your kind are not what's. You should run." She means it. Somewhere under her sternum the wolf raises its head and blinks, child fierce, hungry without malice yet. "Run?" He laughs. "Not cruel. Would you sprint from the ocean when you finally reach it?" The generator dies for good. Darkness takes the room like a hand, closing around a throat, firm, practiced, not yet cruel. Then the moon finds the seam in the roof and slips a blade of light down precisely onto the charm at her throat. The crescent wakes, a cold kiss, a brand you volunteer for and regret later. The heat in her blood teaches itself a new choreography. Bones unremember their compromises. The breath she draws goes wide and deep and comes back changed. "Let it," he whispers, stepping into the bar of light and out again like someone tasting a river with the tip of a shoe. "Please, let it." Her knees hit tile. The sound she makes is a door with a song behind it. Hands, no, paws, scrape grooves into concrete as if she intends to read the floor with her claws. The skin along her forearms fuzzes, then flowers. Her jaw catches on a hinge that hasn't turned in a season and decides not to snap. Through all of it, she keeps the counting her grandmother taught. 4 in, hold 2, 4 out, and the wolf counts with her, not dragged, not driving, but joining. Patient 9 covers his mouth the way believers cover their eyes when the sun comes up in places it shouldn't. Tears slick his cheeks. "Finally," he says, not to her, not exactly, but to the idea that's been stalking him since the first time a locked door sounded like a hymn. Sirens answer, late but loud. "Lockdown initiated," says a voice that belongs to a tape, that belongs to a policy, that belongs to a fear someone once wrote down and tried to staple to a wall. Steel sighs as bolts slam home. Shutter after shutter, finding the end of its little track. The building becomes a clenched fist, knuckles white under old paint. Clara rises, the human frame still visible under the fur like a blueprint shone through. Her eyes have gone to metal and stayed there. Her mouth learns how to show too many teeth without meaning insult. The crescent at her throat glows until the skin beneath it picks a side. In the dim red and the thin silver, the hydrotherapy room sees its first honest patient in 30 years. And the building, rude and ancient and so tired of the lie of being a building, draws its first deep breath to match hers. The howl never truly ends. It folds back into breathing, a low vibration that makes the walls forget their geometry. The red bulbs pulse in time with it. Down every corridor, steel flexes the way lungs do when they're remembering a song. The lockdown shutters slam once, twice, then stop halfway, as if Hollowgate itself has decided not to finish the sentence. Clara stands inside that unfinished breath, steam lifting from her shoulders. Her pulse thrums against the silver crescent, her throat until metal and flesh strike the same rhythm. The voice from the speaker stammers, "Containment breach," then dissolves under static that sounds too much like whispering. She can taste dust, salt, and the sharp sweetness of her own blood. Something under the floor moves, not footsteps, larger, older. A crawl made of iron bones. Patient 9 is gone from the chair. The door yawns wide. Beyond it, the corridor tilts, full of smoke that glitters like snow. Her shadow stretches ahead, part woman, part animal, both hungry for explanation. She walks because running would be ceremony, and she hasn't agreed to any yet. Every door she passes mutters. Locks rattle. Through each viewing slit, a different color of fear glows back. Yellow eyes, red eyes, eyes that are nothing but holes where moonlight hides. The asylum's population hums in its sleep. She wonders how many are dreaming her. At the intersection, she stops. The ceiling sweats. A drop falls onto her wrist and hisses. It's warm, not water. The smell says copper. The pipe above her head pulses like a vein. Hollowgate is bleeding upward. She grips the railing of the stairwell and starts to climb. Her nails leave scratches that gleam silver for a second before fading, the way old photographs fade after too many eyes. On the landing, she finds footprints in reverse. Dark outlines where something cold walked barefoot through blood and cleaned the floor by accident. Patient 9, leaving devotion behind with every step. Each print edges toward the chapel wing. The overhead lamps flare, then dim to a dull rose. The walls tremble, 100 rooms inhale together. The air thickens, scented with rain and antiseptic and ozone. The moon's light slides through the cracks, bleaching everything of color. She presses forward, breathing through her teeth. Each exhale fogs into small ghosts. Halfway down the corridor, a nurse's trolley sits abandoned, its wheels still rocking. A thermos lies open beside it. The coffee inside is frozen solid. She crouches, touches the rim. The frost burns. The wolf in her chest lifts its head, interested. Not prey, it tells her, warning. A whisper answers from the vents. The same voice as before, but thinner, stretched. 4 in, hold 2, 4 out, it croons. Breathe with me. She looks up. The vent grill ripples as though something on the other side is laughing silently. The air that comes through carries her own, sent back to her. She grips the crescent, closes her eyes and listens. Beneath the hum of machines, beneath the whisper, another rhythm beats, slow, patient, measured. A heartbeat not hers, not human. It's the building's. The hallway bends. She turns and almost walks straight into the wall of security glass that separates the lower ward from the therapy wing. Her reflection meets her halfway, full moon eyes, lips barely parted. The reflection moves before she does, blinking out of sync. The wolf bares its teeth at its twin. The twin bares them first. Cracks spider from the center of the pane. The glass fractures into a mosaic of versions of her, each at a different point in becoming. Then the power surges back. White light floods everything. Too bright. Sirens change pitch. Frantic now. The reflection vanishes. When she looks again, the glass is unbroken. She pushes through the double doors and the smell of wet stone and candle wax greets her like an old lie told often enough to sound polite. Patient 9's voice echoes from ahead, lilting, almost merry. Did you ever wonder why we call it an asylum? It's the same root as sanctuary, same promise, different hymnal. Where are you? Right, where I should be, he answers, closer than she expected. The voice threads through the intercom and the pipes, impossible to triangulate. I left the door open. Come see. She follows the trail of footprints through another corridor lined with patient murals. Chalk faces, suns with teeth, moons, dripping petals. The wolf part of her sees them for what they are, scent markers left by minds that knew the truth but had no throats for it. Each one glows faintly as she passes, recognizing kin. Ahead, the air changes temperature, warm, then hot, then suddenly cold as a grave that's been exhumed too soon. The door to hydrotherapy stands ajar again, but behind it there's only dark, darker than absence. She reaches toward it and the doorknob breathes, slow, confident. The palm comes away wet. She takes one step back, then another. and the corridor sighs, disappointed. The red lights along the baseboards blink in a pattern. 4, 3, 4. The building's pulse syncs with hers. At the far end of the hall, a shadow crosses the light, a tall figure dragging something heavy that leaves streaks across the tile. Chains? No. A length of crucifix wood stripped from the chapel. Patient 9 pauses long enough to turn his head. In the wash of red and silver, his grin looks gentle. "Luna, sister," he says. The congregation waits. He turns and walks through the double doors that lead to the chapel corridor. They close behind him without sound. Clara breathes in for 4, holds for 2, breathes out for 4, the way her grandmother taught. The pattern steadies her heartbeat, but it steadies something else with it. Something that isn't supposed to learn steadiness. She knows that if she breaks rhythm, the wolf will take the lead, but if she keeps it too long, she'll never change again. Balance, like the moment before a howl. She walks. Her bare feet slap the floor softly. Each print steams. The crescent at her throat flickers with light like breath trapped in metal. Behind her, the doors she passes close of their own accord, sealing her inside the route he chose. The asylum guides her, not against her, but with her, like a host showing. A favored guest toward the main event. At the corridor's end stands the last door. Wood, carved with a cross that time has chewed. From beyond it comes a low thrum, half organ, half thunder. The wolf in her bones stretches. It recognizes the song. She lays her hand on the handle. The door's surface pulses once, warm, almost human. The whisper from the vent follows her. Here, softer now, intimate. Breathe, Clara. The door breathes with you. She pulls, the hinges scream, the sound pitched so high the moon itself seems to wince. The smell that rolls out is candle smoke and iron. She steps through into light and ruin. The chapel waits, its pews skeletal, its altar humming with someone else's blood. And at the center, barefoot, arms spread as if leading a choir that hasn't yet decided what language to sing in, stands Patient 9. He's barefoot at the altar, palms up as if the chapel were a scale, and he's asking it to weigh his faith. The board over the central window has split. The moon looks in like a nosy neighbor. The broken length of crucifix rests within reach, iron tip shining a mean little smile. Every sanctuary needs a spark, he says. I brought one. The floor answers him from below, first a shiver, then a cough, then the long, stubborn grind of a machine forced back to life. The generator has awakened 2 levels down, pulling breath the hard way. The chapel hums in sympathy. Even the pews seem to vibrate with a note the human ear pretends not to hear. She feels it in her ankles, her ribs, the soft hinge of her jaw. The wolf inside lifts its head. Her voice arrives rough but usable. What did you feed it? Only what it was hungry for. He smiles past her at the rafters. Sermons taste like dust. Blood tastes like memory. Another tremor. The altar warms beneath the moon, heat rising in pulses. In the wall behind it, a conduit pops, seaming a line of bright along old plaster. The bulb above the crucifix flares, dies. Flares again, like a heart too stubborn to quit. The smell reaches her. Hot metal and copper. Not accident. Ritual. She moves. The aisle narrows until it's only the width of her shoulders. Patient 9 doesn't back away. Go on, he whispers. Choose this body. You keep stopping at the door. Her hands flex. Nails click wood. The fur along her forearms lifts like grain under a wind. She steps where candle wax once dripped and finds it soft again, warming underfoot, returning to a state it liked better. The wolf takes her height and wears it to full. Something booms far below, a sound too heavy to be called a bang. The chapel lights gutter. For a second the moon owns everything, and her shadow spreads across the altar like an argument. What did you do to the generator? She asks, not looking away from him. The right move, the only move. Predators don't debate after they take their stance. I told it the truth, he says, Machines love honesty. I said, you were built to carry fire. Here is fire. The floor makes its mind up to tilt. Not much, just enough for hymnals to slide from the front pew and clap their swollen mouths shut at her feet. The hum becomes a note. The note becomes pressure. The pressure finds the small places in the skull where terror keeps its rocks. The charm at her throat answers with a cold that burns. In the corner, a brass plaque lists donors who haven't breathed in half a century. The names glint like teeth. A drop of water patterns the metal into a tiny mirror. In it, she sees her eyes, 2 pale coins with wolves sleeping under the minting. She blinks. The wolves open theirs. Waken. He breathes. I'm only a witness. The chapel groans, a ship in a hard sea. Beneath them, the generator takes a long drag. Vision tightens. Smell blooms. The iron of the cross screams before she hears her own bones renegotiate. The change that started in the hydro room finishes here, under wood and moon and words she refuses to worship. Shoulders bloom, fingertips solve the problem of nails by growing new mathematics. Teeth become punctuation. He bows, no mockery in it. Yes, she doesn't roar. She arrives, and the room has to widen to hold it. Through the smashed stained glass, light pours like a river reversing course. The wind outside swings the rafters into a dark accord. Something with too many legs crosses the ceiling and leaves. Prints, that steam. The congregation of unremembered souls gathers at the doors, not entering, not leaving. Paused like a question that knows its answer and is waiting to see if the mouth can stand it. He stoops, lifts the broken crucifix in both hands. The iron glows gently where it touched her blood before. I won't kill you, he says. I need you breathing. He thinks that generosity. She recognizes the greed in it and does not correct him. Another boom from below. The floor kicks. Once, twice, as if the asylum's heart is learning a more interesting rhythm. The wolf's ears track it, each thud a footstep on a spiral stair. Then the lights go white. Not hospital white, not honest white. Surgical, the kind that erases shadows so skin looks like it has never sheltered anything warm. The generator has hit its stride. The boards over the windows sweat. Air rushes through the vent above the altar, cold enough to thin the candle smoke into threads. The wolf's pupils cinch to pinpricks. The woman inside sets her jaw. They take the same step together. The iron meets her forearm. It sizzles a straight line that will be a story tomorrow if there's a tomorrow. She doesn't give him the gift of a flinch. Her other hand closes on his shoulder. He's lighter than a body ought to be, buoyed by belief. She throws him into, the pews. Wood breaks under him, and for a blessed second he stays down. The hum in the floor grows teeth. Not a sound now, but a presence. Something wearing sound like a suit. Through the cracked plaster behind the altar, a fissure draws itself. Dust snow falls in a halo around the crucifix. The plaque listing names tilts. On it, a drop of water shivers into a perfect circle and will not fall. She turns from him to the wall because some questions refuse to stay behind you. The fissure breathes. Air warms her face. From deep in the hospital's guts, a low note rises, so low it sits you down. Her ribs buzz with it, her teeth hum. The wolf watches the wall. The woman remembers maps, 2 levels down, generator room, old surgical intake, storage that was supposed to be sealed in 76 and never was. He is up again, because of course he is. Down there, he says reverent, where we hid our first promises. I only opened the box. You brought the key. Turn it back, she says. The words cost. It's like pushing breath through wire. You don't turn tides back, he says. You let them teach the shore its name. He runs, not away, from her, toward the side door that leads to the maintenance stairs. She follows, because following is the fastest route to stopping. The door gags on its own bolt and opens after a single cough. The stairwell throws its cold up their faces. The generator's note climbs toward them like a hand lillying through a lake. Down one flight, two, and the shadows thicken to a syrup. Her feet leave steam on the steps. Halfway she stops because the wall is wet, not with water, with bright that isn't light. It beads and slides and leaves no trace where it goes. She tastes it, metal, clean and wrong, a refining instead of a stain. He doesn't pause. "Come," he says, "this part is for you." At the bottom, the corridor crouches low, pipes humming along it like hive ribs. The generator room's door is propped with a book of psalms that has learned more practical uses. Heat rolls from the gap. The floor trembles without drama, the way muscle does when it has taken a weight it expects to keep. She ducks and enters. The generator is an animal that forgot it was a machine. Its pistons pump with devotion. Its belts flash like black tongues. Someone has stripped the safety casing from one side and painted a sigil on the exposed housing. 4 lines, 3, 4, in broad strokes the color of new rust. The strokes aren't dry, they throb. Every turn of the flywheel refreshes them. He's already in the room's far corner, palms against the panel, eyes shut, listening the way people listen for their name in a crowd. Hear it. He breathes. The first howl, muted by water and stone, and all it ever wanted was a microphone. She smells the paint's truth. It isn't paint. The wolf knows blood in any dialect. Human, yes, but not only. Threaded through is another metal note, the kind you smell when lightning has licked a tree and left the bark smoking. Her mouth waters, not hunger. Instinct gearing up to outrage. "You fed it, people," she says. "I fed it prayers," he corrects, sad that she makes him small. "Every one of them begged for the same thing, freedom. I honored them. You should thank me." She crosses the room. The heat wraps her, stroking fur the wrong way. Her vision pushes into a tunnel and out the far side. The sigil spins with the flywheel, line after line renewing, cannot wear off because the act of turning writes it again. At the base of the machine, a tray catches runoff. Thin, bright, constant. It hasn't congealed. It won't. It gleams like moonlight poured into a gutter. He kneels beside it, dips 2 fingers, raises them to his brow. "Imagine," he whispers, a language older than throats. "Imagine it learning how to travel through pipes." She takes the tray and throws it. The liquid arcs, sheets across the wall, and vanishes into plaster without a mark. Where it touched, a palm, hair hisses, skin tightens. She does not make a sound. "You can't stop a river by scolding it," he says gently. "And you can't stop a god by pretending it's plumbing." Her body makes a decision she hadn't granted it permission to make. She finishes changing, not because he asks, because the room does, because pressure has to find an answer before it becomes a break. Fur irises out of skin. Bones set new lines. The jaw accepts its true work. When the room clears, she is taller in exactly the places that make a room smaller. He beams like a man seeing dawn. "You're so," he doesn't finish. Awe kneels on his tongue. The wolf pads forward and lays a paw on the spinning flank of the machine. Heat shocks. Sound climbs her bones. For a moment the generator and she share a pulse. The sigil blazes so bright it has no color. Under it, metal begins to remember awe. The old mountain breathes back through the alloy. She pushes, not with muscle, with the part of her that learned to count 4 and hold 2 and blow air into worlds that didn't want it. The hum stutters, belts slip. The light shivers and thinks about going out. "Don't," he says sharply. He's on his feet, hand on the panel like a man defending his last candle. "Not yet. We're not ready to be honest if you do that." She bares her teeth and leans harder. The room goes dark, not all the way. Enough. The note in the floor drops a 5th. Much farther below them, something moves in its sleep and decides to stay asleep. Her paw leaves the metal. The sigil stays bright for 3 more turns, then dulls to a stain. The tray refills. Slower. The belt's less eager. The chapel above forgets one of its tremors. He stares at her like she killed the spring. "Why would you?" "Because nothing that wakes us should own us," she says, voice braided with growl. "Because a breath you can't stop is a leash with a pretty name." He blinks, surprised to be sad. "I thought we were the same prayer." "We're different answers." From the corridor, a sound arrives, not footfalls, not mechanical. The slow pad of many small paws. The congregation has found their stair. He lifts the iron-tipped wood as if to bless her or to interrupt her blessing. "Then come," he says, back to his devotion and his delight. "Let's see which answer the knight prefers." He bolts for the door. She follows because what he loves is dangerous and what she loves is free. The machine behind them catches its breath and goes on working, chastened but unrepentant. Back into the hall, into the stairwell that spirals up toward the only room in Hollowgate built for kneeling. Up through the bruised light, the air sharper now that the generator hum has been taught manners. The smell of damp stone yields to old wood, then wax, then smoke. They burst into the chapel together, him first, her shadow taller, and the moon, insulted by the interruption, bares its teeth through the split boards. The hunt that follows is not a chase, it's a pursuit, a long, precise carving of space into choices, each smaller than the last, until only the truth can fit through. And the truth is waiting in the pews with a broken hymn in its hands. The moon leans through the fractured roof like a witness who won't leave the stand. The chapel's air tastes of wood ash and brass polish, of history reheated. The first shape that moves is his, patient 9, hair slick with sweat, eyes bright with the kind of clarity people confuse for holiness. He runs, she follows. The pews explode into splinters as they go, dust spiraling upward to sketch ghosts that applaud the living. The corridor beyond the chapel stretches long and red, sirens still gulping breath they can't quite manage. Her claws strike sparks from the tile. His bare soles slap wet rhythm. Between them the air grows tight, a rope of heat and intent. 9 darts left into the east ward, past the cracked windows where moonlight slices the dark into ribbons. She keeps him centered, scent, locked, salt, blood, ozone, faith. Every turn he takes, the walls seem to help him, edges widening a fraction just long enough for him to slip through. The building wants the sermon to continue. They burst into the occupational therapy hall, tables overturned, art supplies scattered like relics of a softer apocalypse. Paint still wet gleams under the red bulbs, 4 strokes, 3, 4 again, the pattern returning wherever the light touches. The smell of turpentine mixes with her own breath. 9 grabs a chair, hurls it. She bats it aside, wood splintering around her like brittle wings. He spins, breath-hitching laughter. "This place loves you," he says. "You should see yourself. You fit in the way truth fits a lie, too perfectly to survive it." Her voice, when it comes, is wind through teeth. "You talk to fill the fear. I talk to give it shape," he says, and backs toward the treatment stair. The wolf surges, the nurse directs. Together they hit him mid-torso, shoulder driving, into his ribs, both of them tumbling through the stairwell gate. They fall a flight, slam against a landing that shudders in sympathy. For a heartbeat they're close enough to feel the rhythm of each other's pulses. One counting in 3s, one in 4s. Discord, the old language. He rakes at her face. She catches his wrist. Bones grind. He yelps, but doesn't plead. "Every cage needs its keeper," he hisses. "Even freedom demands a warden." She hurls him off. He bounces once, twice, lands in a puddle of generator runoff that glows faintly with the same metallic sheen as the sigil's blood. It clings to him like liquid mirror. He laughs again, hollow now. See? It anoints. It knows its high priest. She steps down, slow, deliberate. The wolf wants to finish it here, tear away the argument, end the echo. But somewhere behind her sternum the nurse still breathes, counting, steady. the one that remembers dawn. She lets him scramble to his feet. The lights above them pop in. A sequence, one after another, a fuse of illumination leading toward the western corridor. Something calls from that direction. Low, collective, the shuffle of many bare feet moving in rhythm. The congregation has grown restless. Nine's grin widens. "They're awake," he says. "You've been such a good alarm clock." "They'll eat you first," she says. "Maybe." He wipes the shining fluid from his arm, smears it across his face like war paint. But gods are fed by sacrifice. The crowd rounds the corner. Patients, ghosts, things between. Some crawl, some walk, their mouths open in perfect unison, singing nothing, breathing everything. Their eyes mirror her own color, Mercury, lunar, wrong. She sees herself repeated 100 times, each reflection worse at pretending to be human. Nine lifts his arms. "Choir," his voice cracks into glee. "Sing." The sound that comes is pressure, a wave that peels paint from walls and shakes rust loose from rails. She staggers. The wolf snarls, balance restored by fury. She charges, plowing through the nearest shapes. They burst like smoke balloons, empty robes filled with cold air, illusions with weight, lies given texture. She reaches him. He's still laughing, still conducting, blood from his bitten tongue streaking his teeth. She slams him against the wall. Plaster coughs. "End it." "I can't." He spits crimson. "You think I built this?" "I only remembered the instructions." Behind him the wall ripples. The plaster bulges outward, veins of light tracing beneath the paint. A shape presses from the other side. Something vast and patient, trying to decide which dimension feels more comfortable tonight. The hum from the generator changes key. Hollowgate is tuning itself. She releases him, steps back, eyes never leaving the swelling wall. "What's behind it?" "The reason your grandmother told you to count," he says. The bulge splits. A seam opens, bleeding light. The ward floods with the smell of salt and iron and candle smoke. The air bends. Gravity forgets which way it owes allegiance. Patient 9 drops to his knees, arms lifted, weeping. It's beautiful. She sees only hunger. The wolf lunges, not at him but at the light. Her claws carve into the glow, scatter. The pressure drops. The figures in the corridor shudder, collapse like paper burned from the edges inward. Silence rebounds so hard her ears ring. 9 sobs. "You killed it." "No," she says. "I made it choose a smaller dream." The moon outside slips behind a cloud. The light dies to gray. The hallway breathes once, then stills. The smell remains, though. Old ritual, wet stone, blood with opinions. She looks down at him, a figure shaking with both awe and loss. "It'll wake again," he whispers. "They always do." "Then I'll be there." He grins through the blood. "That's why it loves you." She turns from him, climbs back toward the upper hall. Each step aches, each joint remembers fur and forgets. Behind her, the soft rustle of movement tells her he's following at a distance. Not enemy, not ally. Shadow. The building hums quieter now, the generator purring like an animal that has accepted discipline but not captivity. At the landing, she stops. The air above smells of fire. Somewhere wood crackles. The asylum is beginning to burn from the inside out, slowly, politely, as if to give confession time to pack its things. She pushes open the stairwell door. Beyond lies the upper corridor, leading toward administration, and at its end, the file, room where every lie wears its proper label. She breathes in, 4, hold 2, 4 out, and the wolf hums the count with her. Together they step into the smoke. The chase is over. What waits ahead is revelation dressed in paperwork. Smoke threads the corridor like a rumor that finally learned how to walk. Files wilt on their shelves, labels curling into tongues that can't keep their own names straight. Somewhere, a sprinkler coughs once and decides against it. Clara moves. Through the reddish dim, the wolf inside wearing her bones like a vow. At the turn toward administration, the chapel doors stand open again, wider than before, as if the building has decided it should be a mouth. The aisle beyond glows with a light that is not quite moon and not at all electric, and alters memory, remembering itself too loudly. Patient 9 limps past her and enters first, hands raised in a benediction nobody asked for. "Congregation," he says, and the walls answer by shedding dust in gentle veils. "We have arrived at the gospel." The pews have reassembled themselves crookedly, planks leaning against planks like drunks, propping each other up. The broken crucifix lies across the front bench, iron tip peaking, a sly relic. Above the altar, the fissure in the plaster has widened, ribs of lath showing through like a chest that forgot its shirt. From behind it comes the low, insisting pulse of the generator, tamed, not stopped, beating time for the sermon. Clara steps into the aisle. The floor warms underfoot. Wax softens, sighs. Her other self, the one that counts, keeps the rhythm. Anyway, 4 in, hold 2, 4 out. The wolf matches her breath with a rumble, the harmony that turns breathing into music. Patient 9 turns, delighted to be seen by the person who can ruin him. "You came back to the pulpit," he says. "Good." The homily is short and full of knives. He lifts the iron-tipped wood and rests it on his shoulder as if it were a harmless instrument. "Do you know why the Pashopay built here beneath the river and the hill? Because it's where language thins. Places like this bruise the grammar of the world. You can press through if you commit." "Commit to what?" she asks, voice even. "Not what?" he says, smiling. "Who?" Behind the altar, the fissure breathes. The plaster pulls in, pushes out. With each exhale, a gust of cold air crawls across the chapel floor, pooling around Clara's ankles like a cat. The smell carried on, it is brine and iron and blown-out candles. The wolf steps forward in her chest, ears pricked. "Enough," she says, to him, to the wall, to the part of her that wants to lay down and let the old thing crown. "No more prayers that are just weapons learning manners." 9 laughs, not cruel, only certain. "Then speak your counter-sermon, Luna sister, preach with your teeth." He rushes, the iron flashes. She meets him halfway. The nave becomes a pendulum. Strike, answer, strike, answer. He is quick with doctrine. She is quicker with truth. The iron kisses her shoulder and hisses. Her claw closes on his forearm and leaves 4 neat commas that want to be a sentence. He stumbles. She doesn't press. Mercy is a habit with its own inertia. The congregation gathers at the doors again. Figures that don't decide between body and memory, faces half-rendered by moonlight, mouths working at hymns that never learned words. They stand packed from threshold to vestibule, rows of almost people waiting to see if the altar will choose a god. 9 sees them and swells, buoyed by audience. "Witness!" he cries, turning his back on her to address the crowd. "This is the last lock. We open it together." He slams the iron tip into the altar sigil. 4, 3, 4, driving the lines deeper. The wood answers with a groan that flirts with pleasure and pain. Light floods the cut and pours down the front like a spill of milk turned to mercury. The fissure behind the altar tears an inch wider. Dust falls in a curtain. The note from the generator climbs a step, then another. Clara feels pressure behind her eyes, the kind of ache that maps itself along old scars. The wolf snarls low, a warning to a storm. "Turn away," she tells the congregation, and half of them obey, shadows that blow out like candles. The others lean forward, hungry as tides. 9 swings again. She catches the iron, this time mid-arc. Steam rises from her palm, where metal meets curse. They lock there, lever against bone, sermon against anatomy, while the chapel strains around. Them. Her jaws part. For a heartbeat, she could choose to bite and end the argument with flavor. Instead, she breathes. long and even, counted. The iron softens in her grip, not metal, insistence losing its edge. His eyes widen. "You won't kill me." "Not yet," she says. "You keep introducing me to rooms I don't want to leave burning." He tries a new angle. "I know your file, Clara Voss. I know the mark under your shoulder blade. I know the first time the moon found you in a kitchen with ceramic tiles and you thought the grout lines were a cage you deserved. I know your grandmother's voice. I know how you bit the charm when breath felt like a debt." Wolf growls at the theft. The nurse does not flinch. "I know what you do with knowing," she says. "You turn it into a knife and call the wound a blessing." He grins, blood brightening his teeth. "Blessings always bleed. They break." He pivots, goes for the iron again, and she lets him, because the chapel has shifted its weight and she needs his momentum to turn it. He drives the tip into the floorboards at her feet. The boards split, and a square of black yawns open. The trapdoor that used to lead to storage and now leads to something that waited centuries to be named. Cold air erupts. The congregation moans. The fissure behind the altar peels wider like a second mouth answering the first. From below, the low note swells into a chord. Iron, water, bone. Language with lungs. 9 falls to his knees at the hole's edge and presses his forehead to the floor. "We are ready," he whispers. "Speak for yourself," Clara says, and drops one hand to the trap's rim, the other grabbing his collar. She drags him back up by the throat of his worship. He chokes, surprised, delighted, enraged. "You don't want it," he gasps. "I want it to stop taking what it didn't ask permission to hold." She plants her feet, leans over the dark. The cold rises like a hand. Her fur lifts in a tide. She sees nothing, only the suggestion of shape inside deeper shadow, a negative of lungs filling. The old thing listens the way mountains listen to storms, patient, unafraid, unconvinced. Clara inhales, 4, holds, 2, exhales, 4. She drops the count into the hole like a stone and listens for the splash. The breath goes down in a long ribbon and doesn't echo. It is absorbed, accepted, not owned. Something below shifts its weight to hear better. 9 scrabbles at her wrist. "Don't teach it," he hisses. "Let it teach you." She doesn't spare him a glance. "It already did," she says. "It taught me which prayers are cages." The trap breathes back. Once, twice. The rhythm tries to decide if it belongs to her or to itself. She refuses to take it. She refuses to surrender it. She offers it the way a door offers passage. The room on either side decides what to be. The pressure in the chapel changes. The congregation sways. Behind the altar, the fissure pauses, edges trembling as if embarrassed to be caught trying to become a mouth. The generator's note wobbles, rethinks, settles lower. 9 screams, not in pain, in outrage. "You'll thin it. You'll make it small." "Good," she says. "Smaller things do less harm when men kneel to them." He swings the iron for her temple. The wolf moves faster than thought, faster than doctrine. She catches the haft, twists. The iron flies, spins end over end, and bites the floor on the far side of the trap, sticking there like a compass needle refusing to point where it's told. He lunges after it. She shoulder checks him away and plants a foot on the wood near the hole, balancing on the line between gravity and refusal. "Listen," she tells the dark, and the word is not plea, not command, invitation. "If you are old, be old without eating everything young. If you are hungry, learn a new food. If you are a god, be one that remembers what it felt like to be just sound." The chapel waits. The breath that comes up is not cold this time. It is warm, barely, like a stove that recalls the hand that lit it. The fissure behind the altar exhales and does not widen. The congregation lowers their heads as if a wind passed through them and stole nothing. The wolf in her chest rumbles approval. The human in her eyes waters with smoke and relief. Patient 9 kneels at the hole's rim again, but the worship is gone from his face. What remains is grief, the kind zealots feel when their certainty finds its first bruise. He looks up at her, mouth open on a word he can't afford to say. "You're making it gentle," he breathes, as if she'd confessed a crime. "I'm making it possible," she answers. The chapel settles like an animal circling in straw. Iron in the cross cools. The moon slips from behind a cloud and angles less like a knife, more like a witness willing to be bored if it means no one dies. Down in the trap, the dark hums to itself, a softer register. 9 rises slow, hands empty now, eyes searching her face for the red meat of cruelty and finding none. "If it becomes small," he says, "I'll have no altar. You'll have choice," she says. "Try kneeling to that." He smiles then, sad, human, the first untheatrical curve his mouth has made tonight. He doesn't hold it long. The building pops, wood settling, story turning its page, and the moment breaks. Smoke thickens. Somewhere a beam gives way with the slow dignity of an old king laying down his crown. Clara steps back from the trap. The wolf shakes her shoulders. Fur falls from the change like sparks, shaking loose, dissolving before they touch floor. She looks at the congregation and lifts her chin. "Go," she tells the half-people. "Find rooms without locks. Find air that isn't borrowed." They disperse. They don't vanish. They thin, drift, bleed into the corners of the night where even owls won't gossip. The chapel feels emptier and truer. Patient 9 watches them go with the expression of a father at a bus depot. "They'll return," he says softly. "If they do," she answers, "they'll knock." The pulse underfoot calms. The fissure does not close, but it learns manners. The altar's glow fades to a polite ember. In the distance, a door slams. Real wood, real hand, real reason. Confrontation's over, she says. "For you," he says. "For me, it's revelation next." "Then let's walk there," she says, and turns her back on the altar that wanted a god as badly as he did. He follows because it is his habit, and because even zealots know when to trail the one who keeps buildings from deciding to become mouths. They step into the corridor together, not allies, never friends, but two answers moving toward the question that built Hollowgate. What were we trying to save when we learned to lock doors? Smoke bows them out. The red bulbs flicker. The moon watches from a window with a cracked cross in the glass. The next hall smells of paper and river water and endings, and somewhere below, something big and newly considerate hums like a song practicing its indoor voice. The corridor beyond the chapel narrows until walking feels like remembering a nightmare in reverse. Paint blisters on the walls, soft bubbles that pop and sigh as she passes. Smoke trails her shoulders in loose halos. Patient 9 limps behind, still touching the wall for comfort, the way a child traces pew carvings for proof of company. They reach the old administrative wing, abandoned since a flood, according to every record that mattered to paper. The air tastes different here, less dust, more iron. Clara can smell water even though her boots find only dry tile. Somewhere below, the river keeps time against the foundation. Before it was Hollowgate, 9 says, voice hoarse but reverent. This was a monastery. Before that, a trading post. But before that, the Pashopay kept a circle here. Stones sunk under the earth, each carved with lungs. They said the breath of a god drowned the first world, so they built the next one around. The exhale. He stops beside a cracked plaque that still bears a Latin motto half-eaten by mildew. She reads the remaining letters aloud. Respira, he smiles. Breathe. She moves on. The hallway ends in an oak door warped into a ripple, as if it once watched something burn. The brass handle has fused into the frame. She curls her fingers around it. The metal yields like warm wax. The door opens inward with a sigh that sounds relieved. Inside lies the archive room, the asylum's memory unburied and unrepentant. Rows of filing cabinets kneel like pews. Boxes gape open, tongues of paper spilling across the floor. The red bulbs here are long dead. Illumination comes from the moon alone, streaming through a row of high, barred windows and painting every cabinet in alternating silver and shadow. At the center sits a desk draped in medical charts. On it, a reel-to-reel recorder, ancient, humming. The reels spin, but no tape connects them. The sound that comes is a voice built of static and breath. 4 in, hold 2, 4 out. The words crawl across her spine. The wolf stiffens inside, ears flat. 9 kneels beside the desk. "It learned speech from us," he whispers. "Every patient, every doctor who ever prayed for silence, it kept their breathing. Listen." The reels stutter. The voice changes, pitch, tone by tone, until it speaks in a register that is almost hers. Clara Voss, breath counter, keeper of the lullaby. She steps closer. A charm at her throat pulses against her skin, eager and afraid. "You're not supposed to know my name." "You gave it when you were born," the recorder replies. "You breathed in our air. You breathed out your pledge." 9 laughs softly, the laugh of a man who finds proof that madness has polite grammar. "See, the covenant was written in lungs, not ink. The Pashopay didn't worship the god. They built it with their breathing." The wolf growls. The human listens. Both understand the scale of inheritance now. How every sigh in this building adds mortar to a cathedral no one admits they're building. On the wall behind the desk hangs a framed photograph, half melted by humidity. She wipes the glass. Faces stare back. Early 1900s, staff and patients lined before freshly poured concrete. At the center, a woman wearing a nurse's cap identical to hers. Same eyes, same crescent at the throat. Her stomach hollows. "Who is she?" 9's grin shows too many teeth. "Your grandmother didn't join the staff. She founded it." The wolf's pulse spikes. The nurse's breathing goes thin. "No," she whispers. "She told me. She said, she told you to count." He interrupts. "That's what founders tell their heirs. Every generation needs one who remembers the pattern. 4 in, hold 2, 4 out. The rhythm that keeps the gate's heart steady. She passed you the metronome, little Luna. You're not here to cure anything. You're here to make sure it doesn't stop breathing." The room darkens, not less light. Denser dark, the kind that eats detail. The reels stop spinning. The recorder exhales smoke that smells of salt and milk and graves. The voice returns, layered now. Hers, her grandmother's, the 1,000 whose exhalations built the asylum's lungs. "Do not let the breath die." She steps back. "You want me to keep it alive. You are it alive." The wolf howls, short, sharp, rebellion disguised as music. The lights flare white, a last gasp. The voice falters. Static crackles. The reels seize. The smoke collapses inward and leaves silence ringing like an alarm too proud to admit failure. Patient 9 stands. "It can't hold its own words anymore," he says. "You cut the cord when you refused its rhythm." "Then it ends with us," she says. He shakes his head. "No, it ends with you. I was only a messenger." His smile returns, small, almost grateful. "Thank you for finishing the prayer." She reaches for him, but he steps back into the shadow where the voice once stood. The darkness folds over him like cloth. When it pulls away, the space is empty. Only the smell of iron remains. The wolf's heartbeat slows. The nurse breathes. 4 in, hold 2, 4 out. The pattern still works, but now it belongs wholly to her. She looks down at the recorder. Its reels are motionless, but something within ticks, faint and insistent. Not machine, not ghost, only the sound of Hollowgate remembering to breathe without her permission. She turns toward the door. Smoke has thickened. Heat presses from below. The fire's ready to finish the erasure she began. She walks back through the archive hall, each step pulling ash into curls behind her. The cabinets bow as she passes, paperwork fluttering like penitent birds. At the exit, the floor trembles one final time, gratitude or warning she can't tell. Sleep, she tells the building, voice low, dreams small. The tremor stops. The moon outside glows steady through the cracked window. She pushes through the final door into the courtyard. The night greets her clean. The air feels heavier, now honest in its silence. She tilts her head and inhales. The wolf joins the breath halfway. Together they exhale, and the asylum behind them exhales with them. One last shared rhythm before the flames claim the rest. The courtyard is slick with rain and ash, a mirror someone cracked to make the night less vain. Smoke unspools from the chapel roof in slow ribbons. Every ribbon writes a sentence the wind edits mid-air. The moon has thinned to a pale coin, tired of being everyone's witness. The sirens have given up their opinion. In the stillness, you can hear what survives any building, breath. Clara steps barefoot onto the broken concrete. Steam gnaws at her footprints, and then forgets them. The silver crescent at her throat lies hot against cooling skin. It hums once like a moth striking glass, then quiets, as if it has remembered it was only ever jewelry pretending to be a spell. The wolf inside studies the edges of the world for movement. The nurse studies the center of it for truth. They arrive at the same conclusion. It is morning, even if the sun hasn't signed the paperwork. At the gate, a figure leans on a post like a man trying to outweight his own heartbeat. Renee, last guard on first shift, eyes rimmed red, shotgun held. Wrong. He looks at her, then away, then back, because some sights insist. Clara, he says, voice skidding on her name. What did you do? She thinks of neat answers, the kind administrators prefer, the sort that come with bullet points and plausible deniability. She tastes their ashes and lets them blow away. I let something big become small, she says. I made a door choose to be a door instead of a mouth. He stares as if language were a rug she just shook all the dust out of. Is it over? Things like this don't end, she says. They decide how loudly to go on. He nods at the burning wings. And them? They'll sleep, she says. Or they'll wander. It depends on whether they liked the sound of their own breathing too much to give it up. His cigarette trembles. He hasn't lit it. He wants to. The lighter looks ashamed of its job. You need a doctor, he offers, because kindness wears the clothes it owns. I need a forest, she says, and a horizon not blocked by bricks that learn to sing. They stand together a moment. The fire takes the old wood with slow courtesy. Beams sink to their knees, then lie down as if remembering they were trees once, and trees are good at endings. The smoke smells cleaner than it should. No plastic, no wire, just sap and dust and the last of the damp hymnals sighing themselves out. The moon thins further. In the east, a stain of color wonders whether it has the courage to be dawn. The wolf tilts its head, listening for the complicated silence that means other throats are thinking about music. It hears one, far off, careful, not a challenge, an answer. The sound lifts the hair on Clara's arms, not as warning, as recognition. She smiles with half her mouth, the other half keeps watch. Renee lowers the useless shotgun. If you walk away, he says, who writes the report? Write it like a prayer, she says. Short, honest, vague. He almost laughs. It escapes as breath instead. Where will you go? She glances at the tree line. The pines stand in their columns, dark spines against a grey sky. She remembers them from childhood as a set of backs to hide behind. She remembers counting under. Them, 4, 2, 4, while the night tried on different names. I'll go listen, she says. If I hear anything trying to be a god, I'll teach it manners. Renee nods, the nod of a man who knows bravery when it forgets to change clothes. He fumbles the lighter, offers it. She takes it, weighs it, flicks it once, and tosses the small flame through the open gate. It lands in a string of generator runoff that never learned to congeal. For a heartbeat it sprints like bright mercury, then remembers fire is an animal and lies down to eat slow. "Goodbye, Hollowgate," she says, not turning to watch. The word goodbye hates to be stared at. She steps off the road into dirt. The wolf approves of the texture. The woman approves of the fact that it gives a little underweight and then forgives. Pine needles whisper. Somewhere a crow clears its throat. The forest knows her, not the detail of her, but the curve of her breathing. The count that makes even a curse walk in time. She moves deeper and the night shifts from ownership to companionship. Under the boughs, the moon is only a rumor. The rules soften. Feet find roots without thinking. The scent layers change. Smoke thins to sap, iron to loam, candle to crushed fern. Her shoulders unclench along a slow hinge. Her spine sheds the last of the chapel's posture. The wolf, denied prey and sermon both, paces and then settles, content to divide watch duty with the part of her that likes to keep numbers in their pens. A clearing arrives the way good rooms do, when you need it and not before. The grass there is modest, bent where deer favored it, shining with dew the fire couldn't bully. A stump waits like a chair carved by weather and patience. She sits. The charm cools. The world enlarges to hold a creature who doesn't need an audience to be true. Dawn opens its eyes properly. The first light is weak and honest. It slides under the trees and blushes the fog. Birds begin listing their opinions. A fox scolds something it will forgive in 10 heartbeats. Far off, tires on wet road hiss the day awake. Human sounds will come, then paperwork, then consequence, then someone in a suit who believes names sit. Quietly once they've been typed, she allows the future its hour. It doesn't get to. For now there's this, lungs that belong to her. A heart that can tell the difference between duty and worship, and a space in which to practice both without applause. She inhales, deep. The wolf meets the breath at the bottom and raises it by one measure, as if they've been sharing cigarettes on back steps forever, and only now admit they like the same brand. When she exhales, she thinks of her grandmother, half-faced. In an old photograph, eyes that looked like rain before it chooses whether to be good news. She thinks of the kitchen tiles that used to be a grid she mistook for a verdict. Of a child biting a charm because terror hates bare hands. Of the first time she realized counting was not obedience, but art. "Thank you," she says, into pine and fog and the corner of the old world still listening for the lesson and the debt. Leaves applaud. The wolf noses the ground, finds a story in a print left by something careful. The print faces east. Good. So does she. After a while, footsteps find her. Not patient. Familiar. Renee, against orders he has never been good at obeying, crosses the tree line without sneaking. He stops short when he sees her not as nurse or phenomenon, but as animal and ordinance, a creature with jurisdiction. He lifts his hands, empty. "They'll come," he says. "You know, I do. They'll want you to explain until you become their favorite cage. I won't. They'll ask where he went," he says, voice softer. Patient Nine's absence has a shape it's impolite not to acknowledge. "Did he? He chose a shadow," she says. "It opened. He stepped into it. That was always going to be his door." Renee nods like a man making peace with a math problem. He looks at the horizon, then at her. "Is there anything you need?" She thinks about needs. Most are small because small things are easier to keep honest. "When they ask what happened," she says at last, "tell them the building had a lung infection and I practiced hygiene. If they laugh, let them. Laughter is cheaper than fear and spends the same." He smiles, barely. He slips a folded something from his pocket. An old photograph is peeled. He hands it to her. She expects the asylum in sepia, a gilt postcard. It's not. It's a woman in a field of high grass, hair braided, throat bright with a familiar crescent. The photographer loved her. That kind of focus doesn't lie. "Found it in the archive room, in a folder with your initials," he says. Thought you might want proof you're not the first person to look like a verdict and turn out to be a door. She takes the picture. The wolf leans over her shoulder like a sibling. The face in the photograph looks past the camera, toward a line of trees cut exactly like these. The mouth has a secret it will not sell. I knew she kept something back, Clara says. I didn't know it was for me. Renee nods again, the way men nod when language has measured the moment's width and found it too narrow. He steps away, leaving her the distance he knows she needs more than information. On his third pace, he pauses. What should I tell them to call you? He asks without turning. She considers names as one might consider coats, useful, sometimes handsome, always weather-bound. Clara, she says, it's good enough. And if they ask for titles, doctor, sister, butcher, tell them I'm the one who listens. She smiles at his back. That usually makes paper tired. He laughs, real this time, a short bark that startles a jay and makes it curse the way jays do. He goes, and the forest swallows the sound without punishment. Alone again. No, not alone, accompanied by a self big enough to count as a we. She pockets the photograph. The lighter a friend pressed into her palm sits warm against it. Tools that pretend to be relics, relics that pretend to be tools. She stands. The grass leans. A line between trunk and trunk opens, not a path, a suggestion. She takes it. As she walks, the narration of the world changes key. The fire's smoke thins into ordinary mist. The moon hovers like a polite exit. Sunlight creeps along a branch and discovers the spider that has been knitting a silver grammar all night. It lights the web without burning the author. The wolf approves. The nurse proves. Both feel lighter in the kind of way weightlifting makes you lighter. Strength married to honest exhaustion. At the edge of the woods, the land unlatches into a low bluff. From here, she can see the river that underwrote Hollowgate's foundation and taste why men put their fears near water. The water is unbothered, and unbothered things look a lot like salvation if you only squint. The asylum throws one last quiet plume. The roofline sags into a silhouette that finally admits it was a hill wearing a suit. Clara breathes with the river. 4 in, hold 2, 4 out. Not because she must, because the body likes a song it can. Trust. A sound dances, low, near. She turns. Between trees at the edge of the clearing, 2 eyes regard her from the level of her hip. Not human, not afraid. A grey shadow with a scar through one ear steps forward, places 4 paws inside her last 2 footprints, and sits. Its breath puffs small clouds that bloom and vanish. It sneezes once, as if to tidy the air. The head tilts. Hello, she says. The wolf, this other wolf, not hers, blinks once, slow. It looks at the charm at her throat, then at the horizon, then back. In the pause where choices are weighed, she hears the rustle of other bodies not approaching, not retreating, waiting to see if dawn keeps its word. She sinks to a knee, palms open, breath steady. She does not offer food, or touch, or promise. She offers parity. The grey leans forward, inhales the length of her face, and huffs exactly as if she's passable. Then it stands, pads 2 steps toward the trees, and looks back with a politeness she has seldom received from people, an invitation as economical as a doorframe. Not a pack, she says, a chorus. It goes. She follows, because every choice tonight stopped being about refusal the minute she turned the machine down and taught the old lung to pick a smaller song. They move slow enough for consequence to keep up. The forest ahead is not fair or kind, but it is undecorated by intentions she doesn't consent to, and that's its own mercy. The sky discovers blue under its thumb. Cautious at first, she tastes it and likes the ingredient list. By the time the sun clears the pines, the clearing is a memory. The burned asylum is a rumor. The city is a rumor. Her old shift is a rumor. What remains is a woman who can count, and a creature who can hunt, and a world that can be talked into remembering its scale. She stops at water. The river slides past, with that implacable generosity rivers practice. She sees her reflection, mud on cheek, ash in hair, eyes that learned to hold metal and now refuse to rust. She could look for a girl in that mirror or a monster. She finds neither. She finds the shape breath makes when it learns it isn't property. Some nights, she tells the water, you pay the debt. Some mornings the debt pays you back. The water has no opinion but carries the sentence anyway, tucking it politely into downstream. Behind her, a second set of paws arrives at the bank and waits without pressure. She smiles without needing to show teeth. A breeze lifts and wanders off. Somewhere a hawk writes a paragraph the field mice will misread and then understand too late. Somewhere tires crunch on gravel back at the gate. The first official car of the day has discovered smoke and forms an opinion. Somewhere a reporter sharpens a question. Somewhere a bureaucrat sharpens the same question into a shape that fits a box. Somewhere patient 9 kneels in a shadow he misnamed and learns the long lesson all zealots learn, that devotions which require other people's bones can't afford to pass the audit. Here, no audits, just breath. She gives the morning 3 more counts. The wolf gives it 3 more for luck. Together they reach a number that feels like a door swung open. She steps through. When she speaks again, it isn't to the water or the wolf or the old god that wanted to be a ventriloquist. It's to you, listening with your living red instruments. If you made it through the night, keep something of it, not the fear. Fear is a sales pitch. Keep the rhythm. When rooms try to become mouths, count them into being doors. When a prayer asks for your knees before it earns your ear, check its knives. When a building breathes, teach it how to breathe. Like a guest, Clara Voss walks the river. The wolf walks beside her. Morning learns its lines without hurrying. Behind them, fire finishes what mercy started. Ahead of them, woods and water and a road wider than paperwork. She doesn't look back. She doesn't have to. She has her breath. She has her name. She has a moon that knows how to be quiet when asked nicely. She goes on, and the world, this time, goes with her. At Whispering Narratives, we don't just tell horror stories, we keep the doors honest. If you made it through Hollowgate tonight, you already know. Some buildings don't fall, they just learn quieter ways to breathe. Subscribe before the next full moon, and share this with the one friend you'd trust not to open the wrong door. Some debts are paid in courage, some are paid in clicks. Yours? Pay both. I'm the voice in the dark reminding you that every story still echoes if you breathe slow enough to hear it. Until next time, keep counting your breaths. 4 in, hold. 2, 4 out, we'll be waiting.